look who we've bumped into. Once again, that's 3 out of 3. You can see the spots behind there. So, Brent, you're falling behind once again. But our little green-eyed boy is in the same place as he was yesterday morning. So there's the beautiful Thamba. There's tracks for his mom going northwards away from where we are now. I was just looking at her tracks, and then Seb spotted him walking on the bank right next to us. So he's in the same place. He's watching Franklin's, much like what he was doing yesterday. And still on his own. Shame, boy. Now, the Franklins are all around him once again, much like what we saw yesterday. And he's watching them and looking at them. Now, don't lie down there, please. But you're going to, aren't you? Yes, you are. Because you can see, look at that camouflage right there. So if you were driving past now and you weren't paying attention, that's how difficult it can be to spot a leopard. He's no more than 5 meters from us, but you would really struggle to be able to see any sign of him from where he is now. It's basically just little ears in the grass, and he's lying in there because of the Franklins shouting at him. I'm sure he wants them to all go away and to stop making a noise, and so that's why he's positioned himself in that thicket. But we are being so spoilt by this guy. To be able to find him day after day, or drive after drive like we have, has been so special. So I'm very glad that we have found him. Hopefully this morning he has a little bit more of a restful morning and doesn't get pushed around by the big grey pachyderms that were around yesterday. So I'm hoping that he's just going to have a good restful morning, and Mom will come back with a surprise for him. That's what I hope, is that there's going to be food and we'll be able to follow him and Mom towards where a carcass is. So our sticks mission is going to have to be put on hold. I was just saying earlier, when we unfortunately lost a bit of signal, is that Djuma has been so good to us recently. We haven't had to actually spend too much time on Chitwa. We haven't had to go to the dam too much because we've been kept busy by so many tracks. Oh, look at those eyes. So many tracks and so many cats on this side of the world that it really has been fantastic. We've had lots in our backyard, so to speak. Paul, you're wondering how the injured leopard is, which is, you're referring to Shadow. Unfortunately, no, Paul. Since the day that we've seen her, she hasn't been found again. We've looked in that area, and we're finding tracks for her, but we just haven't been able to find her. As I was mentioning the one day, an injured leopard like that is not a leopard you want to be walking around on foot with. It's a leopard that's going to be feeling nervous. It's got a cub. And so we've been giving that area a bit of a wide berth. We haven't been walking in that area too much just because we don't want to stress her in any way. We want her to try and have the best possible chance of recovering. And so we've left her to be able to kind of just sort herself out. And we will take a turn past there now that Taylor will be back this afternoon. And it's not just myself. We'll be able to concentrate a little bit more about driving in that area and spending time in that area. Because at the end of the day, when it's just me, we kind of get a bit distracted, and we've had so much time with this little boy that we see here that I haven't been able to spend enough time in that area to actually look for her properly. But I know some of the other guides have, and they haven't come up with anything just yet. The ears are moving again, eyes are all over the place. Typical little Thamba. He's such a curious cat. He always is looking around and checking, and he seems to have this thing where he likes to look over his head, basically. He kind of tilts his head back and looks backwards without turning his head around. Maybe he's just too lazy to swivel. It's easier just to flop it back towards his back and watch over that way. I wonder if that's where he's going to settle. It looks as though he's getting a little bit sleepy. You can see the head is bobbing. I think he might put that head down. If he puts his head down, we're really going to battle to see him. Riedel, you want to know what is the ages that lion, leopard and cheetah cubs become independent from their mothers? Well, that's quite a long question, so I'll start with the leopards since we're looking at little Thamba. Leopards, generally between 14 months and 2 years is when you will see a leopard breaking apart from its mother and moving off into its own territory. Remember that both female and male will separate from the mom and set up territories, and they will then no longer see each other as a mother-daughter or a mother-son relationship. If the male tends to spend more time here, he's going to then see that female, even if it's his mom, as a potential mating source, or his sister, or anything like that. So they set up territories, and they are then If it's a female in the fringe of the mother's territory, if it's a male, generally distributed away from that area. So anywhere between 14 months and 2 years, but we do know that sometimes it happens earlier. Sometimes females will push their cubs out a little bit earlier, around the year-old, or sometimes even as much as 3.5 is the oldest cub that I've ever seen with a female. She in fact had a new litter by that point and was able to raise not only her big 3.5-year-old male, but 2 1-year-old males at the same time. It was quite a feat to see her do so. In terms of lions, if they're females, generally they are absorbed into the pride, so they never actually get pushed out by their moms, but they are able to take care of themselves and become individuals that are mature and sexually mature and breeding at around 3.5 to 4 years as a female. Sometimes they can mate a little bit earlier than that, as at 2.5 years, but generally most females will give birth to their first set of cubs around 3.5, and that's when we kind of classify them as no longer dependent on the female. But 2 to 3 years would be a time that sometimes the females will push the males and particularly the females away and start mating and potentially having cubs of their own again. So that kind of bracket. In cheetah, very similar. So it's all the same. It's around 2 years until, if it's males, that they'll then get pushed out and go and form a coalition on their own, or if it's a female, she'll get pushed out and try and find her own territory. So it's generally around that same sort of period, around 2 years for all the cats, but it depends on the social structure. Remember, like I say with lions, that the females will stay within the pride. Males generally then get cast aside by the male himself and not the females at around 3.5 to 4 years old. Right, I'm going to try and reposition a little bit just so that we can see if we can't get a better visual on Thamba, because of course Seb has got the sum total of an ear to focus on at the moment. So Seb, I'm going to try and get up this little bank here. Hopefully Rusty will be able to do it. Are we going to be able to see him from behind there though? Because we're not... there and then... Now, while I try and kind of get myself into position here, let's go back to Jamie, who I believe has got lollipop trees, whatever that is. Well, we've managed to get ourselves into a much better position where we can admire the beauty of our little rock star, is what we probably should be calling him, Lepi. Look at those eyes and that little pink nose, and he's just looking up a little bit now. I love it when he does that. When he just looks up slightly, those eyes really come alive. But he's lying no more than, what, Seb, I would say 2 meters from us. And he's just watching us from behind. There we go, the car is right here. So there is where little Thamba is, and he is completely chilled. He's just kind of looked around. He was watching Seb for a little bit, then he was watching me as I was moving around a little bit. But he is, as you can see, not really fazed by the fact that we are sitting so close to him. And I'm surprised, because I remember the first few times I saw Thamba, he wasn't really that chilled on his own. He used to be fine if Mom was around, but as soon as he was by himself, he used to be a little bit more wary. But maybe over the last few days, because we've spent quite a bit of time with him, he's just getting used to the fact that we're a part of everyday life at this stage, which is fantastic news, because the more time we spend with him, the more relaxed he gets, the better it is for us. But look at those eyes. And boy, have you had a long night. He almost looks a lot more sleepy than he was yesterday. And the birds are still shouting at him. Oh, look at that. Going to yawn. Now, I believe a lot of you are saying just how pretty he is and how beautiful he is. I know a lot of you were mentioning on social media that he's stealing your hearts, and he's slowly but surely becoming a favorite, I think, of a lot of different people. The more we spend time around him, the better it seems to get. And oh, look at those eyes. There we go. Now, hopefully he'll look up at us again and that blade of grass will disappear. That is incredible. Look at that, guys. Screenshot right there. Yeah, Seb says thank you. Wow. Now, for those of you wondering about any markings on his face and around the eyes, that is about as close up as we're ever going to get of a leopard and its markings and how it looks. And so for ID purposes, as he goes and maybe distributes away, shots like that will be the best thing to use. And you can see, look at that membrane that just came over the eye. Wow. It's not every day you're going to get close-ups of a leopard eye like that. Is he still watching around? Oh, look at that. are you looking at? I have no idea what he's staring at. I think there's a little leaf that's moving above him. Look at that. Needle, you're saying that it's interesting that Thamba at 1-year-old is as big as that his 10-year-old mom. Well, you must remember that the females don't get anywhere near as big as what the males do, so the males are almost double the size when they're fully grown. So it's just how it goes. Unfortunately, the females, they have a tough time of it when their sons grow up, because it's a lot of work to keep a individual of this size fed. What are you after? Oh, big yawn as well. You are spoiling us. I think there's a leaf just above him that's blowing. I can't see anything though, or maybe a branch that's moving, because he keeps watching the same little branch. Or it's a spider web, that's what it is, Seb. Look, there's a spider web. He's watching a spider web that's floating in the breeze. So it's obviously picking up a little bit of the shine. So it's just there on that left-hand stick. I can just see it glistening in the sun. If you go up a little bit, Seb, maybe we'll pick it up. There, between those little leaves there, there's a spider web that's floating and bouncing around. And I think that's what he's watching. Oh, look at, he's stretching now on the branch. Look at that. What are you doing? But look at the size of those claws and paws. How can you not enjoy it? I suppose we drive around here and are constantly amazed by what we see, and constantly looking, and like little kids going ooh and ah at all the things that are around, and it seems as though he has that same curiosity about life. You can't catch the spider web. It's not spider webs are not food for you, or play toys. You'll break it quickly. How cool is this though? Now, I believe we've got a bit of breakup. I do apologize. Like I said, we have had a few little gremlins, and we are in the Milwaukee, and we are live from Africa, and so these things do happen from time to time. And like I said, we are sending our stream all the way to the Mara, so every now and then there might be a little bit of picture breakup, which I do apologize about. So if you missed what I was saying, it was just that we were talking about him being so playful and adventurous and being much like us in the way that we explore this wilderness area. Michael, you want to know how he compares in size to Tandi's past male cubs at the same age? So, Michael, I didn't get to see Bahuti when he was older. I saw him as a tiny cub, but I never saw him when he was a year old. And Wabayiza, obviously, I spent a lot of time around. Wabayiza was probably not quite as big as Thamba. Wabayiza had a slightly different build. He was a lot shorter than what Thamba is now, and he was quite squat and heavy set. But he was definitely not the same size as what we see from Thamba. Thamba is a little bit larger, much bigger feet as well than what Wabayiza had. Bahuti, like I say, I can't really make a comparison because I didn't see him at the same age. But from what pictures and various other things that I saw, it seemed as though Bahuti was quite a big boy, and I would imagine that he would have been of a similar size. It's difficult though, like I say, without seeing them, it's just an assumption, and photographs are often misleading in the way that they look. Sometimes animals can look a lot larger than they actually are, so difficult to say. Unfortunately, didn't get to spend much time with him. I remember seeing him as a tiny little cub, Bahuti, and that was just when I left Chitwa, and then slowly but surely developed into a beautiful male. It's unfortunate, one of the males that also seems to have disappeared. I don't know what the actual situation was with him, or where he ended up, or what's actually happened, but he most definitely was also a beautiful cat, and I'll never forget him because I remember him being on a pangolin carcass, which was really quite something. At one stage he ate a pangolin. Right, now while little Thamba hides and shies away behind his little stump, let's go back across to Scotty, who's watching his river cams, and I'm sure in anticipation of a crossing. Very chilled, and I think he's had a long night. He seems to be a lot more tired than what we saw yesterday. You can see his head is now buried firmly behind the log, and that is one sleepy cat. And Most certainly, if you drove past here now, there's no ways that you would see this cat. It's just not a possibility if you were in the Mulawati and driving. And even if you were on the banks on top, you'd have to be very, very lucky to see that and hope that he just popped his head up and looked at you. Because otherwise, he's not as active as he has been the last 2 drives. He's, I think, maybe tired from putting up such a big performance yesterday. He had the elephants to deal with in the morning, and in the afternoon he was up and down and all over the place. And so, what is interesting is it looks like Thandi was here at some point yesterday or last night, because her tracks are in the Mulawati, like I was saying, going north from here. So I think potentially maybe she came back, checked on him, saw that he's okay, and then has gone off again to hunt and to go look around. Also, last night as we finished up and we left Thamba, Tingana crossed into our side, and who knows, maybe Thandi and Tingana have met up again and continued that little romance that we've had the past few weeks. Because no one has seen any tracks for Tingana leaving the property, so it's potentially that he's still here somewhere, like I say, with Thandi. A little bit of grooming going on. Got to keep the coat clean and look good when you're a rock star. Look at him peering out. What are you doing? Big yawn, and there you can see those hairs on the tongue. Big canines. I remember the first few times we saw Thamba, he actually had his milk teeth in, so he had 4 canines, not just, 8 canines. Lapis Mundial, you want to know how do the cats keep their coat looking so clean and pretty? Well, by doing what he's doing right now, by grooming himself. So what they do is they've got very flexible bodies, and then they've got a tongue that is covered with fine hairs that have a hook-like structure to them, and they are able to then go through the coat, and it's almost like brushing your pet with a brush that you can buy from a store. It takes off all of the loose fur. It gets rid of any parasites that they potentially have. And also they have a bit of saliva, which just helps to clean off any of the dust and dirt. And so that's why they always look so healthy and so velvety, and as though they've been to the parlor and they've made themselves look absolutely perfect. So it's all just to do with the fact that they groom themselves effectively and often. Now I believe Jamie is sitting with some little sausages, and I can only imagine what those are. Now our little boy is still sitting in the same place and just watching the ongoings and the rustling of the grass as the wind blows, and he definitely is a lot more sleepy than he was yesterday. I suppose he also hasn't had the same motivations around. There hasn't been francolins and hyenas and elephants to keep him busy as there was yesterday morning. And so I think he's taking it very easy. And so what I was saying to Seb now is that if he starts to sleep again, what we might do is just let him have a nap and try and see if we can't go follow up on the Styx Pride while they're around, and then come back to him. I don't think he's going to move too much today at all. Much like yesterday, I think he might go towards Twin Dams for a drink, but otherwise I think he's going to be pretty stationary in this Mulawati area. It's nice and shady, there's a bit of a breeze blowing today, and ultimately it is going to get quite warm. The sun is out and it already is on the warmer side, so I'm hoping that that's where he's going to end up for the day, but he certainly is very sleepy. I just enjoy watching him with the flies. He doesn't seem to really know what to do. He tries to grab them, but he's far too slow to actually catch any of them. You can see that they irritate him, but sometimes he just gets to the point where he just can't be asked. Sounds like some arrow-marked babblers behind us as well. Maybe it's actually the redwood hoopoes, sorry. They have such a similar call. Green-billed. Mita, hello Mita, how are you? I hope you're having a good day today. Mita, you're wondering about who has the longest tail, cheetah, lion, or leopard? Well, Mita, the cheetah has the longest tail of them all in relation to the size of the body, and that's because the cheetah needs their tail for when they're running. It helps them to balance, and it helps them to turn quickly when they're chasing things like the gazelle, because the gazelle, they're able to turn very, very fast, and that's how they try to get away from the cheetah. The cheetah runs fast in a straight line, but it's difficult for it to turn when it's running so fast, and so you'll find that they need that long tail to help turn to be able to catch the food that they're looking for. And then look at those claws and big feet. Already got serious weapons inside there. That's a very cool view of a leopard paw. How cool is that? So you can see, look how the claws went back in. So they are not retractable. Everybody always often refers to them as retractable claws. Leopard claws and lion claws don't retract, they protract. So when they're in a relaxed position, you see, only when he forces them do they come out. Otherwise, they naturally stay inside. There we go. So protracting. If it was retracting, they would be out and he would pull them in. They naturally are inside, and only when he exerts force or pushes them do they come out. So that is called protraction, not retraction. What are you doing? You're almost climbing your way underneath that log now. So he's now positioned his head underneath, which means that if anything gives him a fright, he's going to hit his head on that stump, which will be completely ridiculous, but so in line with what he's like and what he ends up doing. But he's really now a very flat cat, so I think what we'll probably do is just leave him here to have a rest and to sleep, and try and see if we can't go and find that Styx Pride. It certainly is a nice surprise, and to catch up with him and to see him again. He's been wonderful for us the last few drives, and we've spent so much time with him. But I feel as though we need to give him a little break and let him have a nice rest. And now that he's flat like this, I don't think he's going to get up to too much unless something motivates him. So what we'll do is go try and find the Styx Pride. If we are not successful, you see he's going to hit his head at some point, I'm sure of it. If we're not successful, we will come back to Thamba and we'll come and try and see if he's still sleeping or if he's decided to move a little bit. But I don't think he's going very far at all. The fact that he's as flat as he is now tends to suggest that that's where he's going to stay for the day. But look at his belly. His belly is still quite large. He actually hasn't gone down too much. So I wonder if he didn't find something during the night again just to sustain himself. Be interesting to know. Anyway, right, while we go on our little expedition for the Styx Pride, let's go back to Scott, who I believe has got some wildebeest who have changed their mind. And it always reminds me of that cartoon of the wildebeest that try and convince each other that it's a crocodile and not a log. They seem to change their mind quite a bit. Here we can see our little boy is doing just fine. He's now positioned himself on the western side, of the Mulawati. So he's up on the high bank, and from there I think he's going to be just fine. He's also moved slightly north a little bit, so the angle of those sticks, if they do move, is going to take them away from where he is. So the clever little boy is up, and it's a much better position now, where I doubt he's going to get surprised at all. Also, he's found himself a perfect shady spot to spend most of the day, so I would imagine that he's going to be just fine. So he's already worked out and probably smelt that there was something afoot, and that's why he came up here. And now he's just peering at us from under the growth of that quarry bush. So Rebecca wants to know if there are any animals that would suffer coming from the Mara to South Africa. I know that it was discussed by Jamie the other way around, and I don't know if Jamie mentioned the wildebeest. I think our wildebeest, if they went there, would have a very tough time of things. They're not used to being chased and hunted as much as those ones up there, so I think our wildebeest would have a problem going that way. But the other way around, I think the leopards would have a very tough time if they came from that side, the reason being that the competition here is that much more. I think they'd be really have their hands full with trying to find a territory and eke out an existence. I also don't know whether the size of the leopards there is in any way relative to the size here. It would be interesting to know what Brent thinks about that, because I think Brent's probably seen more leopards that side than what any of the others have, but it would certainly be interesting to see a size comparison between them. I would think that the impalas probably even though they would struggle that side with the bigger impalas, I think the impalas coming here would be, a lot more trouble. The animals there's a lot more animals that are hunted, so wildebeest, zebra, gazelles, whereas impalas here are number one on the menu. So I think the impalas from that side would certainly have a much tougher time of it. What else can we think of? Just trying to think what other animals would have a tough time here from the Mara side. I think that's about it. Maybe elephants as well. A lot more ellies here. The bulls might not have it as easy as what they do up there. Not nearly as dense in population with bull elephants as we do have here in the Kruger Park system. And that's it. I think all the other animals would be just fine if they came here. I think they would cope quite well. As well, a lot of the animals from the side cope quite well in the Mara. It would be interesting, though, to see what would happen if you had things like caracals, servals, the smaller cats, because they seem to do quite well in the Mara, but here we very seldom get sightings of them, and because of the high leopard density, which will actively hunt a lot of those cats, I wonder if maybe that has something to do with it. So those animals might struggle in the Sabi Sands too. You would find, I think, caracals and servals and wildcats having a tough time here. And, well, we know the cheetahs would also not do as well here as they do in the Mara. So there's quite a number of those smaller predators that would suffer with the density of other predators here. A lot of leopard lion and hyena, and the fact that they can't see them coming would make it a lot harder. So Roshni is saying, am I not smiling ear to ear because it's been an awesome drive? Well, Roshni, most certainly I am, because it has been the most epic drive. Sebastian and I were talking about it just now. When is the last time that we've had 2 lion sightings on this, well, 2 different lion prides basically, and we've had a leopard, and it's just been cat to cat to cat. So there we go, Seb. And since Seb has been with me, in fact, even Senzo, this whole week has just been magical. We've just had cats coming out of our ears, and, well, it doesn't get much better than that. So, yes, I am smiling from ear to ear. It has certainly been a very, very good start to the day, and hopefully it will continue. Hopefully our Thursday afternoon will be just as good. Now, we need a new name for Thursday, because we've got Feline Friday, we've got Cat Today, and so we need a Thursday name. I don't know, maybe some of you can come get creative, hashtag Safari Live, and give us a name for Thursday that can relate to some of our cats when we go looking for them, because this morning has definitely been a very cat-themed morning, so hopefully you guys will come up with something quite creative for Thursdays. But it has been a very, very, very special morning on Djuma, and just imagine if Taylor was here, we would have also been able to have found Mvula as well, so we might have had Mvula. There's tracks for Tingana, so who knows if Taylor had been here and we had divided our resources, how many more sightings we could have come across. And that's also, we haven't even gotten to the hyena den, so there's lots happening on Djuma at the moment, and it promises to be an epic afternoon, so make sure that you are tuning in for this afternoon. I'm sure it's going to be really quite something. Now, Kirsten, you say Thursday, I think is what you said, so as in the fur of a cat. Well, I quite like that. Seb and I were thinking, what about Thursday? So that could be also another word that we could use. Maybe there's some others that will come out of today, and by this afternoon we'll have some more answers. But it certainly has been, whatever way we want to call it, it's been a cat day for sure. I'm just saying hello to Aubrey as he drives past. Cheers, guys. So they've also had the guests that have been at Vuurtela. So Graham Wallington. Hello, Graham. How are you? I hope you're well. It's been a long time since I've seen Graham, and I'm sure he's had a very busy schedule of late, and hopefully he's been enjoying the fact that there's been so much going on, and definitely that the Mara has been producing. And you say pause day, Graham, so there we go. I think the big boss gets the vote, so pause day it is from now on. Now,